Inside an automotive manufacturing plant, the work is relentless. For years, industrial sewing machines stitch the fabric of consumer vehicles on a continuous assembly line. This is the reality for workers at Toyo Seat Philippines Corporation, a manufacturer that fulfills subcontracts for global automakers. They spend their days on the floor, doing the manual labor required to assemble components, like these beige car seats. This equation represents a pervasive heuristic in Philippine labor law. If an employee performs tasks that are essential to a company's core business for over a year, the assumption is that they automatically attain regular employment status. When a group of Toyo Seat sewers filed a labor dispute, the Court of Appeals applied exactly that logic. Since manufacturing car seats is Toyo Seat's primary business, and these employees had been doing it for years, the appellate court ruled they were regular employees entitled to tenurial security. The Supreme Court reversed that decision. The High Court identified the appellate ruling as a severe misreading of the statute. The assumption that essential work plus time guarantees regular employment is a legal fallacy when applied to project-based contracts. The ruling in Toyo Seat versus Velasco establishes the specific legal boundary that allows project-based work to exist alongside continuous manufacturing. Relying on that heuristic traps companies in costly illegal dismissal suits and leads lower courts to grant tenure where it legally does not exist. To understand why the courts keep getting this wrong, we have to look at the actual text of the law. Look closely at the text of Article 295 of the Labor Code. It states that employees performing usually necessary or desirable activities are deemed regular, but the law contains a specific exception that overrides that test. It does not apply where employment has been fixed for a specific project. The Supreme Court clarified that a valid project can absolutely fall within the regular business of the employer. The legal requirement is simply that the job must be distinct, separate, and identifiable from the company's other ongoing operations. Producing generic car seats is Toyo Seat's core business. However, fulfilling a specific subcontract, like the J68N project, which required producing export trim specifically for the 2011 Mazda 3 model, qualifies as a legally valid project. The Court of Appeals originally rejected this because Toyo Seat's production deadlines kept fluctuating. When consumer demand for the Mazda 3 dropped, the project was delayed. The appellate court argued that this uncertain completion date proved the project contracts were a sham to avoid regularizing the workers. This timeline illustrates how that argument fails under Article 1933 of the Civil Code. A legally valid timeframe does not require a rigid calendar date. It only requires a day certain, an event that must necessarily come, like the completion of the Mazda order. When market forces delayed the project, Toyo Seat issued explicitly documented notices of extension, formally adjusting the timeline. Market-driven, fluctuating deadlines do not invalidate an employee's project status. As long as the completion event is determinable and communicated to the worker, the contract holds. The case featured another operational complication. When Mazda orders dropped, Toyo Seat didn't fire idle workers. Instead, they accommodated them by assigning them to sew trims for the Mitsubishi Lancer's GS41 project. To the Court of Appeals, this simultaneous assignment indicated these workers were an undifferentiated labor pool, doing whatever general tasks the company needed on any given day. This document comparison reveals the Supreme Court's counterlogic. The simultaneous engagement was legally defensible for one precise reason. Toyo Seat required the workers to sign separate, distinct contracts for the new GS41 project. If Toyo Seat had simply ordered the workers to switch assembly lines without a paper trail, they would have lost the case. Executing separate agreements proved a rigorous segregation of duties, maintaining boundaries between the distinct projects. The workers raised one final technical hurdle. They pointed out that Toyo Seat failed to file termination reports with the Department of Labor and Employment at the end of each project, a requirement under Department Order No. 19-1993. The Supreme Court clarified that administrative rules like DO 19-1993 are supplementary. A missing termination report indicates regular employment, but is entirely outweighed by the physical presence of signed project contracts and detailed extension notices. In labor tribunals, corporate intent to segregate labor isn't proven by perfect administrative filing. It is proven through proactive, rigorous contractual paperwork. This matrix illustrates how jurisprudence prioritizes contractual specificity over operational necessity. The boundary is strictly defined by the initial agreement. For simultaneous assignments, employers must execute separate contracts for every task. When orders drop, explicit documented extension notices maintain that legally required determinable period. An employer's operational flexibility to adapt to market forces is a business necessity. Adjusting to those forces does not inherently equal a bad faith attempt to circumvent tenurial security. The Toyo Seat versus Velasco decision proves that the labor code is designed to protect both the workers' rights and the employer's economic agility. But that dual protection only holds up in court if the corporate paperwork flawlessly mirrors the operational reality.